Okay, welcome everybody. I'm sure there are going to be a few more people joining us, but we are ready to get started. So hopefully you are all here to join us for National Fitness Day. So happy National Fitness Day to everybody. We are going to be talking about swimming in particular and the health benefits of swimming. The theme for National Fitness Day this year is Your Health is for Life. And you're joining three people today who really believe that swimming can contribute to that long-lasting, healthy lifestyle. So I'm joined by Professor Greg Whyte and Keri-Anne Payne, and I'm going to hand over to them in a second to introduce themselves. My name's Emma Lewis. I'm the National Aquatics Manager for Social Enterprise Leisure Operator Better. And we operate leisure centres and most importantly swimming pools all over the UK. And we're bringing you some great minds today to talk to you about their experience and their knowledge around the health benefits of swimming. So over to these guys to introduce themselves to you and let you know where they're coming from in terms of their swimming and health background. So Greg, can I come to you first, please?
You can. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, as it is. I'm Professor Greg Whyte. I'm a former Olympian. I'm a world and European medalist in the sport called modern pentathlon. And effectively, I've been a researcher now for over 3 decades, and much of that research is actually focused on swimming, the benefits of swimming, at both ends of the spectrum. So from disease all the way through to high performance. So I was lucky enough to be the Director of Research at the British Olympic Medical Centre and the Director of Science at the English Institute of Sport, working with elite sport. And now much of my work is actually around clinical exercise physiology, where I look at the role of exercise in clinical populations, particularly things like cancer, heart disease, and also those things which aren't necessarily diseases, but things like pregnancy and the role that swimming plays in enhancing health in those populations.
That's fantastic. So it sounds like we're going to be taking this discussion far and wide, and it doesn't matter what people's backgrounds are, what stage of life they're at, whether they've got long-term health conditions or not. There's going to be something for everyone in this, which is fantastic. Thank you. Keri-Anne, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I'll apologise now for the dog in the background. He's just on his way out for a dog walk, so apologies if he barks in the meantime. But I'm Keri-Anne Payne. I am an Olympian as well. I went to 3 Olympic Games for the 10K in the open water. I have swum my whole life as a kid. Absolutely loved swimming. It's the one thing I kept coming back to. I just love being in the water. So since retiring, which was back in 2017 pretty much, I set up a couple of open water coaching businesses, one being kind of doing coaching, and I absolutely love beginners. So again, Emma, as you said earlier, this is for everyone. Even if you can't swim right now, this is absolutely still a topic for us to talk about with everyone. And I love coaching beginners all the way through to elites. I've coached quite a few people, but I really love the beginning parts, just helping someone understand how they can. And you can, I promise, you can swim front crawl. And it shouldn't be that difficult. It's just been made a bit complicated. And the other part of what I did was I joined the Swimming Teachers Association, and I helped to create a level 2 open water coaching qualification. And in the 5 years that I was running that, I qualified just over 550 coaches, which was amazing. And I just have a great network of open water coaches around the UK and worldwide. There's a few people around the world too. I have taken a little bit of a step back from that. I'm not running those courses and much coaching anymore, but I am now working for Team GB. So I've kind of come full circle back to elite sport again. I'm not coaching, so I'm not doing any coaching there, but I work for the organisation, the British Olympic Association.
That's fantastic. Thank you, both of you. And we are definitely going to be diving into learning to swim for those people that may be thinking about swimming, but not confident or haven't done it in a long time. And we're going to come back to that because I know we've all got plenty to say on that. But what I'd like to start with is what we think are. Let's just go straight in on the health benefits of swimming. You know, if you've got to pick your top ones, where are we going to start with this? Greg, can I come to you first?
I mean, sure. I mean, I think what's interesting with this is actually, to some extent, what we're talking about is physical activity and the benefits of physical activity for health. And swimming is one part of that physical activity spectrum. So I think, firstly, don't think of it as something utterly unique. Effectively, what we are doing is we're moving, which we have evolved to do, is fundamental to our health, and actually not only promoting our health, but also rehabilitating following illness or injury or surgery. So it's a critical part of what we do and what we should do. In of that, really, we're talking about physical health. And often people think that health is just the freedom from disease, which is one aspect of it, but it's actually also about mental health, emotional health. And I think for me, one of the critical roles that swimming plays is actually social health, which is an interesting one, because we often think of swimmers being isolated, because you've got your face down the water, you're looking at a black line, or you're in a river or a lake in isolation. But actually what works around it are the communities that are based around swimming. And so it becomes very much a part of our social health as well. So swimming is, as most physical activities are, offers a spectrum of health benefits. And there are also some very specific things about swimming which make it a great activity to be part of to enhance our health.
I think that's a great answer, and you've covered the whole spectrum there in terms of the physical, the mental, and you're so right about the social benefits. A lot of our pools are communities in themselves. I mean, a leisure centre is a community, but actually there's a real community just based around the pool as well. We find this often in the Lidos, in the outdoor pools, but the same can be said of the indoor pools as well, because, you know, if you're going on a regular basis and you've got a routine, you're going to see the same people and have a chat, and then it evolves from there. So really, this isn't just about physical and mental health. This is addressing loneliness and friendship groups and things like that as well. Keri-Anne, from your point of view, what would you like to add around the sort of key health benefits from your perspective for swimming?
I think there's a lot of things to add to that. I think, you know, everything Greg said is amazing. The only things I was thinking while I was saying, I was like, oh no, what am I going to say? Is a little bit around kind of that blue space. So certainly from an outdoor perspective, being in and around blue space is great. That can still be said for the same in swimming pools as well. Like even getting outside of your house to get to the leisure centre, maybe walking there, that kind of stuff, all makes a difference to movement, to mood, all that kind of stuff as well anyway. And then the other one, kind of, lots more gyms and open water venues are doing a lot more cold stuff as well. So that's the only thing I guess that we can kind of add. There's a lot of health benefits around the cold, which I'm sure we'll go into in a little while, especially with it coming into winter. And it doesn't always have to be, you know, this hardy, you've got to go in, and you certainly don't have to be hardy about it. Like, I still scream quite loud when I go in the water, and I've been doing it for 4 seasons now. It's not this like big hardy thing that you've got to do. It can be really fun, really exciting, and there's lots of great things that you can do. And the final thing for me is that swimming is literally for everyone. There is not a single person I can think of that shouldn't swim at some point in their life. Yes, there's certain times where if you've just had an operation, you probably shouldn't swim. If you've just had a baby, you probably shouldn't swim just then. But there's lots of really good information out there to help you with that. But it's for kids, it's for adults, it's for you know, our older generations. It's a great way to keep active, which is essentially what Greg was saying before. But swimming is unique potentially in a way because it can be for absolutely everyone.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that in terms of the accessibility of swimming as an activity. It's something that, you know, it helps you start well, it helps you live well, and it helps you age well. Absolutely. Greg, just coming back to your point about the fact that this is about movement and physical activity. I think often when we talk about exercise and gyms and things, it can be really off-putting to people who are getting into it for the first time. So I really like the idea of us talking about activity and movement, because that just feels a lot easier and a lot more open. And you mentioned the fact that this is about all movement and all activity, not necessarily specific to swimming. However, there are some benefits that are very specific to swimming in terms of using the water and the weightlessness and resistance and so on. So would you be able to talk to us a little bit about maybe some specific health conditions, or, you know, specific times of life where actually being in the water is probably the most beneficial activity or movement to do?
Well, it's an interesting one that you sort of talk about this almost a fear of the gym, which is pervasive and does exist. And I think to some extent that's what National Fitness Day is today. That's what National Fitness Day is all about, really. So there's a whole host of swimming pools opening up around the UK, opening their doors for free so people can actually come and try it. And I think actually getting across that barrier where they can participate and they're comfortable participating really does matter. Paradoxically, for me, I think one of the interesting ones is actually around the issue of being semi-nude when you swim. And lots of people say that is a limitation. Now, interesting enough, at one end of the spectrum, actually, when it comes to race and ethnicity, it is an issue, particularly for Muslim women. But what we've seen in the sector is the growth and the development of things like the bikini and various different swimsuits, which mean that Muslim women can swim. Equally, women-only sessions. Those women-only sessions include just female lifeguards, and so lots of things are changing within the sector that can make it a lot more comfortable. And I think as well, interestingly, we have undertaken a host of research actually around obesity, which we know is a critical problem in the Western world. And I think to some extent, the paradox is that in the water, people feel invisible. Because they're submerged underwater, people can't look at them. So unlike walking on a treadmill or being in the gym lifting weights, actually you are invisible. So paradoxically, people feel much more comfortable when it comes to the water. And I think in of that, the great thing about swimming is that it's the breadth of what is available to you. Actually, it's not just about swimming up and down in a lane. It's not about competing. You can just actually enjoy the space. And so things like aquarobics, which are absolutely perfect in those environments, work really well. And of course, the other thing that you mentioned was this issue of weightlessness, is that the hydrostatic pressure that you get from water lifts and reduces body weight. So again, for things like obesity, it becomes a much more attainable type of activity. Equally for rehabilitation, so things like knee, hip, back injuries, actually it becomes a really valuable tool as well. And I'm sure many of us see rehab programs in our local pools being led by physios and clinical exercise physiologists. So the great thing about the pool, or the great thing about water, and actually open water, we can extend that into some of the work that Keri-Anne was talking about, particularly around things like depression and anxiety, and some very interesting work around dementia and the role that cold open water swimming could actually play in reducing the incidence of dementia. So it's multifactorial, and really, to some extent, there is a space for everybody, depending on what it is that you're looking to achieve.
That's fantastic, and I think I don't know which bit to pick on there, because I think you've covered such a plethora of different things there. But I'm going to hone in on the kind of body image element, because I think that is something that it can be off-putting for people, and that walk out onto poolside when you're coming out of the changing rooms and you're leaving all your clothes in a locker, and you're walking out in your swimwear and potentially onto a new poolside you've not been to before. So it can be incredibly daunting. But what people might not realise is that, these days, if you want to wear, something to cover up slightly, then most pools will allow you to do that. As long as it's not too baggy and it's not going to pull you under the water, then actually you can cover up. Or you can keep your towel around you and then hang it up on hooks on poolside, or put it in the boxes on poolside and things like that. So it's worth going and asking at your local leisure centre, and the people who are on reception are going to be happy to talk to you. We want to get more people using the pools. We understand the value and the benefit of them, and we're just probably a little bit overexcited about it and want to share that with everyone and want more people coming in and getting in the water. So visit your local pool. By all means, scan the code that's up behind me and download your free guest pass to use one of the better leisure centres, and go and have a swim and try out that journey, because it's not just about the experience in the pool. I think we understand it's about the whole customer experience, right the way through, from how you book it, how you come into reception, whether you can park, how you're going to get there, how how people meet and greet you, and all the people that you see on your journey through. But as Greg says, once people are in the water, you're so busy worried about what you're doing, and you're under the water, no one's looking at you. other than the lifeguards, to make sure that you're safe. And it's a really safe space actually to, you know, to come in, get in the water and enjoy that experience. Keri-Anne, from your point of view again, are there any particular health benefits that you'd like to pick up on?
I think that there's a lot. I mean, there's lots and lots. The challenge with some of these things is that everyone's different. So everyone will have different ways of working and feeling and different bodies and shapes and sizes and all that kind of stuff. So everyone is different, but swimming again is one of those things that there will be something there that you can use swimming for, whether it's the social element of it. So researching at your local leisure centre, is there a masters club, or is there a social swimming group? Because that stuff, although you know it really is like being lonely is a really hard thing to get active anyway, if someone's feeling really lonely in their little bubble in their world. So actually finding somewhere that has opportunities, even if that is joining the aqua aerobics as an example, it's actually incredibly hard. I have done many aquarobic sessions, and it seems like it's the thing for, you know, the slightly older ladies to go and do that. But they have a great social life because actually they go and do that and then they go and have coffee afterwards. But it can be incredibly difficult. I remember doing a few sessions going, I'd be totally fine. And then I was like going through like, I need to stop the burn of the muscle. So it can be a really great workout, an opportunity. And there's a group of people and a community in and around that sort of area. So for me, I think swimming, one of the biggest kind of health benefits, and it might not be like a physical thing necessarily, but it's for the mind, massively for the mind. I think the other thing a lot of people struggle with is anxiety, and just not being able to find something to do that's just totally mindless in a way, that you just have to focus on what you're doing. So there's two things I know that water related that help you with that. One is the cold. When it's that cold, you can't really think of anything else other than that, so you're really present in the moment. And the other thing, in swimming pools, outdoor, indoor, whatever it is, you can have earphones if you want to, but you can't have a conversation with someone. You can have conversations in your head with people, but you are by yourself with your own, either with your own thoughts, or the thing that I used to get a lot from swimming, those kind of longer distance sessions where I'd get in and do laps, was actually my mind could just switch off, and it was like Zen time and zone, you know, to be able to just zone out a little bit. And that for me is a really great opportunity for us as humans in a world where we, you know, we're not cavemen anymore, so we don't have the ability to sleep outside to regulate our parasympathetic nervous systems anymore, to calm us down. You know, we're getting emails left, right and center from work, from school, from kids, so we're constantly stressed, constantly in this anxious state. So finding something like swimming, even if you go to the gym, people take their phones with them, they're still checking their phones, checking their emails whilst they're in the gym. In swimming, you can't really do that. You kind of have to leave your phone in your locker or somewhere else for you to go in and do that session. So I think those two things for me are really big opportunities for people to take a lot from it.
I couldn't agree with you more. My own experience of cold water swimming at the beginning of this year was definitely the only thing I could focus on when I got in was breathing. So I was not distracted by anything else because I was just trying to get that under control. And then once you're in and you're enjoying it, you're just, and outdoors, you're so taken by the environment and the things that are going on around you in that sense that you're soaking it all up. And even a, you know, 10-minute dip. And I'm not talking about anything that is going to be a massive cardio workout or anything. I'm talking just about those benefits of the cold water, and that time outside as well, I think can be just as beneficial, but in a very different way than, you know, a longer session indoors in the gym or doing another activity. You mentioned water workout, aqua aerobics, that type of thing, and there's been a couple of questions already in the chat, but to be honest, they're more about what's going on in our leisure centres, and I'm absolutely going to feed that back to the teams. But I do want to touch on this because swimming is not just about lessons and lanes, and I think that often there's a perception that if you're going to the pool, you're either swimming up and down or you're learning to swim, and there is nothing else on offer. And I think pool programs and what's available in people's local pools has really developed over the last few years. And don't get me wrong, those things are definitely still there. And if that's what you want to do, then that is available to you. But, you know, those water workout sessions, those aqua aerobics, are really, really good. And Keri-Anne, you were talking about the sort of how challenging they can be as well. And I guess this is around the resistance and the water. So can you both sort of talk to me a little bit about, you know, what sorts of health conditions perhaps would benefit, or what sort of times in our lives would we most benefit from something like the aqua aerobic sessions?
I'll go with that if you like. I mean, I think Keri-Anne's almost coined it, and that is, look, it's for everybody. I think it's an interesting one. Is that invariably, you know, we see it when you go to the gym or when you go to the leisure centre, you look at a particular class, and there's always a sort of high density of a particular demographic. And the same is true when you look at aqua aerobics. You know, it does tend to be sort of middle-aged and older women. And I think to some extent, the interesting thing is that there's probably a fear from men about getting involved with that. It's either a fear of actually being part of that group, thinking it's not for them. Equally, there's also this understanding, and Keri-Anne's absolutely right, is that they look at it and think, well, it can't be that difficult, just bouncing about in the pool. Well, you know, the one thing I'll always say is, you know, give it a go, because it really is tough. But I think generally, actually, it does suit everybody, irrespective of age. And age does matter, because obviously we change as we age. But I think in terms of body type, it really does help because of the hydrostatic pressure, and also the fact that the pool generally is warm. And so it's a much more, it's almost a cozy environment. And I think equally, a whole host of different conditions, medical conditions, which lend them to something like aqua aerobics. I think, well, just think about it as it's a stepping stone. It doesn't, you try aqua aerobics once, doesn't mean to say that's the only thing that you can ever do and that's what you've got to keep doing. Actually, I think what you find for many people is it's a wonderful stepping stone from there into the gym. It gives them the confidence. It also gives them a community. They become part of that community, and they find that community then does other classes. They also go into the gym. And so therefore what you do is you instead of paying that gym membership just for the pool, what you start to do is start to evolve into other areas around the gym, and you start to really become part of the entire community.
Or even the other way around, if you're using just the gym, but there's a perfectly great swimming pool that's, you know, not as busy as some gyms can sometimes be, it's a great opportunity to try out something new and different. And you don't have to have a condition necessarily to do something like aqua aerobics. If you are doing weight sessions in the gym, it's just another opportunity to try something out that's still, you know, hard on the muscles, because you can make it, you're in control really about how hard it is and it isn't. But certainly if people are injured, you know, with knees and hips and all that kind of stuff, it's a great opportunity because you can really kind of be cautious and conscious and speak to the instructor about, you know, I've got this has happened over here. But it still means you can get that arm workout in, or it's vice versa. If you've got, you know, bad shoulders and things, you can still get your leg workout in, but in that kind of non-weight bearing scenario, that can make quite a nice difference for a lot of people, I think, in those settings. And again, you know, we briefly mentioned it earlier, but like pregnant women, you know, the water's a great place to just take a bit of weight off. And again, you can make those sessions as hard or as easy as you want, but if it's just a case of getting some movement in, feeling good, having a bit of the weight of the baby kind of supported in the water a little bit, it can all make a really nice difference. So that's someone in their life that, you know, might not have done it before, but finds a good opportunity, or finds it, you know, really useful and helpful in that scenario if they've done exercise and lead up to it.
Fantastic. There's a few comments and questions in the chat. Those that are questions, I'm going to come back to at the end of the session. So we'll do a bit of a Q&A at the end and go through those. But there's a few comments around, you know, there are a few men that attend the aqua class that I go to and so on. And a great suggestion about doing a specific class aimed at younger men to get them involved. Interestingly, I was on a poolside recently where I saw 2 aqua sessions back to back, and one of them was with music, and there were no men in that session. It was all females. And then the second session afterwards did not have music. It was still water workout session, but with no music going on, and that one was much more balanced in terms of gender, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, I think the other thing, interestingly, is actually if you change the name of it, it would have a different outlook. Aqua aerobics for men of my generation will be thinking about Jane Fonda, and it clearly isn't for me. Whereas actually, if you called it aqua circuit,
Yeah.
or aqua body pump, all of a sudden, so actually the name really does matter. So I think in terms of those people who are providing the service, actually, think carefully about it's those little things that can make a big difference to who turns up.
Yeah, I agree. Just thinking exactly the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, although we do that, you will find there are some deep water workouts, the majority of those water workout sessions are in the shallow end of pools. So we do have people who are not confident swimmers that are doing those sessions, and they will stay close to the edge. They'll make the instructor aware, they may use some flotation aids, but you don't have to be a really strong swimmer to be doing those sessions. So it is it's a good entry point, really, isn't it, into swimming? Okay, speaking of entry points into swimming, I think we should talk about learning to swim a little bit, because we're talking about these great health benefits of swimming, but what if I can't swim? How am I going to get over that so that I can enjoy some time in the pool? Keri-Anne, I'm going to come to you first. And I've got plenty to say on this as well from a swimming lesson and swimming teacher point of view. But I know that teaching and coaching adults has been something that you're really passionate about as well. So do you want to kick us off with, where do you start? If you're thinking, okay, I'm hearing this, I think that swimming could be good for me, but you know what, I've not done it in years, or I never quite mastered it, and this might be a bit too scary for me. Where should people start?
Yeah, I think swimming can be a bit polarizing sometimes. You're either sometimes people say I'm either a swimmer or I'm not a swimmer, or quite often we'll get people saying, oh, I'm not a swimmer, but they can swim. I think we need to just change our mindset a little bit around swimming and what that means. Even getting in the water and moving, you're swimming, you're in the water swimming. Swimming doesn't have to just be head down, front crawl, because that is something that a lot of people do struggle with, especially maybe they've done it as a kid, taken some time out, and then kind of feel a little bit unconfident. I think if you're in that boat, I'd highly, highly recommend finding a swim squad or a coach, someone that can help you with a little bit of that confidence, just to be able to step back into it. And it might seem, I think that's one of the things that people struggle with the most as adults is owning up to the fact that they either can't swim or that they can't do something that's expected, like ride a bike, those sorts of things. There used to be, I hope this is changing now, I feel like it is changing now, a bit of a taboo to be able to say you can't do those things. So people just put it off, and then sometimes pass that on to their children. So I'd say if you are new as an adult, you've swum before, just go to the pool, get yourself confident with it. Even if you just get in for 5 minutes, you do 2 lengths and you get back out for your first go, that's fine. It's just about building up the confidence, knowing where the showers are, knowing what the lockers look like, all that kind of stuff. And then if you feel like you just need a little bit more of that confidence, then finding someone that can help you do that. I know that will cost money, but it will totally be worth the money, because swimming can offer and open up so many opportunities. If you are, I think I saw a question about hydrophobia before, that does require some support and some help. It's really important that you find someone that can help you through that process, someone that's really encouraging, someone that understands how it feels to somewhat empathetic in that scenario. And I know lots of coaches who are, all the coaches that I know are really empathetic when it comes to hydrophobia, because it can be a big scary thing, but it's I promise you, it's a really easy fix. Once what's happening is your brain essentially is going into fight or flight mode when it thinks about going into water. So you're getting to that really hyper anxiety stress state, and so you're kind of seeking bad things to happen, and you might swallow a little bit of water and all that sort of stuff. So that definitely doesn't help. But if you can find someone that can help keep your parasympathetic nervous system, because what we're trying to do is keep your brain in the right frame of mind to be able to take on new skills. If you're in fight or flight, you won't be able to listen to what a coach says to you. Your brain is just not working. But if we can keep you in kind of the front part of your brain, which is the part that's like logic and problem solving and all that sort of stuff, and we can do that through breathing. So if you're going by yourself, sitting on the side, putting your feet in the water, no pressure for you to get into the water. Just do some really nice kind of in for 3, out for 6, or in for 2, out for 4 breaths, just to calm your system, your nervous system back down again. And that will start to make you rationalize things again and go, it's really shallow here. I know I can stand in the water. And those little steps, even putting your feet in the water, sitting down, putting your legs into the water, wetting your hands, putting a bit of water on your face, each one of those things, it could take you 3 weeks to build up to doing those things. It all adds up in the end from that perspective. But what I would suggest is if you are really scared of water and you have children, I would highly recommend that you get them into swimming lessons as early as possible, so that you don't, and I'm not saying that you will pass it on, but so that you definitely don't pass on the fear of water to your children, because it's much harder to get over that in adult life, as you're probably experiencing, than when you're kids. There's a little less fear when it comes to those sorts of things. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I
Greg?
just I don't know what I'd add on that. Absolutely bang on. And I think perhaps the question before is why? Why bother? And I think what's critical to remember here is that one person drowns every 20 hours in the UK. It's the 3rd leading cause of premature death worldwide. So it really does, learning to swim really does matter. And I think the other thing that people often forget is that when in learning to swim, and what Keri-Anne's just described there really is actually water safety. It is understanding where you're swimming, how deep is it, what's the conditions like, where am I, is there for open water, is there a flow, is there a rip? So water safety alongside that learning to swim is absolutely crucial. And have we got a problem? Well, last year, over 1 million children left school unable to swim, despite it being a statutory requirement that every 6-year-old in this country should be able to swim, which is simply 25 meters unaided and the ability to get in and out of the water. So it's not a complex issue, but it's an incredibly important issue, not only for health, but actually it can and does save lives. So it's really important that we learn to swim, whatever age that is. It's not just about children. This is whatever age you are, because invariably around about 80% of people who find themselves in water don't intend to be in water. So they've slipped in, the dog's gone in and they've gone after it, all of those type of things. So it's no point saying to yourself, well, I'm never going to swim, so I don't need to learn to swim. Learn to swim, because it's really important for you personally. And then, as Keri-Anne has said, that cascades through the family. Non-swimming parents have non-swimming children, and that's not a good thing. So everybody should learn to swim, whatever age you are.
That's a really strong message, and I couldn't have put that better myself. And water safety is so important. And learning to swim is on the national curriculum, but as you say, doing it and completing it and getting the results and ensuring that every child that leaves primary school is able to swim 25 meters and rescue themselves is, we're nowhere near where we need to be to ensure that the children in this country are safe. And we live on an island and we're surrounded by waterways, and it's so incredibly important. And I don't want to take away from the importance of that message at all, but what it also does do is pose the question of why else should we swim? And if you can't swim, there are just so many things that are off the table to you as well, because it is a gateway activity, isn't it? So, I'm sure all of us have enjoyed all sorts of other activities based on the fact that we are confident in the water. So what sort of things are people missing out on, I guess, if they can't swim, whether that's activities, job opportunities, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the thing for me is being able to go on holiday and go in the water with your children, or go in, picking somewhere that does have water or somewhere that doesn't have water. As an example, it without realizing it closes off a lot of opportunities for people. But being able to swim, and your kids being able to swim and you being able to go in with them, does make a really great opportunity, because it opens up things like holidays or weekends where you could choose swimming as an activity to do with the family or with your child on a Saturday, Sunday morning, whatever it might look like, just as some bonding time. There's lots of opportunities around that from that perspective, I would say. But I'll let Greg add some more.
Well, I absolutely bang on. And one of the messages I always send to people is, look, if your children can swim, when you go on holiday, you can actually enjoy yourself as a parent, because you haven't got to constantly watch the swimming pool. You can lie back on the sunbed and read a book and not worry about it, because your children can swim. And so I think actually there's a sort of a monetary value as well as a social value to it. And I think also the fact is that there's so many activities that go on in the water. Canoeing, kayaking, rowing, stand-up paddle boarding. Even if you go to water parks or water skiing and all of those type of things, which are open to you, you don't have to be a great swimmer to do those activities, but you certainly do need to be confident in the water and understand water safety. And so I think, you know, if you can't swim and you're not confident critically, you're not confident in, on or around water, then you are closing down so many activities that are available to us, whether that's at home or when we're on holiday.
I think the other thing Emma, then the other thing it does is it closes off potential opportunities, especially from young teenagers and going into their kind of early adulthood. Lots of opportunities around lifeguarding, open water pool environments. There's always going to be swimming pools around, and they always need lifeguards. So there's an opportunity to earn some cash at university or college, that kind of stuff. And then moving into swimming teaching as well. There's amazing career opportunities within swimming teaching, into swimming coaching. You can go into elite coaching, you know, make it to the Olympic Games, or you can go completely the opposite and just do learn to swim beginner stuff, which is both are incredibly rewarding career paths. And even if that's just a sideline opportunity while you do other things, the coaches side, multiple jobs, but one of the avenues that they were doing was the swimming coaching avenue, if that makes sense. So it adds a lot of opportunity from a professional perspective as well into certainly your children's lives. They can, you know, go abroad, they can do some other things along those lines. They can, you know, be lifeguards or coaches at holiday resorts, you know, all those little things, which are really great opportunities for our children as well. If they know how to swim, they can then step into those kind of outdoorsy, fun activities.
I just want to take that one step further in terms of the job opportunities as well. The National Lifeguard qualification actually gives you UCAS points towards your university application now as well, which I think is fantastic. And obviously I'm going to be an advocate for, you know, working in leisure and getting those lifeguarding qualifications and getting those swimming teaching qualifications. But in terms of adults learning to swim, we've run a few programs over the last few years, and there's one in particular that springs to mind for me where we had 3 generations of the same family that were learning to swim on an adult swimming lesson program. So it was a son, a mother, and a grandmother that were in the program. And the grandmother was recovering from breast cancer, and she was using it for rehabilitation and being in the water. And once she got water confident, she was able to join the aqua aerobic sessions and continues to do so. The mother learned to swim, having never been able to swim before, which is why her son and his siblings couldn't swim either. So it opened up a whole world of possibilities for her. And then the son learned to swim and ended up going on to do his lifeguarding qualification and eventually his swim teaching qualification, and joined us to work for us as well. So just so many opportunities and a shared experience. And I think that's the bit that I wanted to kind of pull out from that is some of our best teachers for adults are those that have learned themselves as adults, because that experience is very fresh in their mind for them, and they can put themselves back in that position of being, you know, nervous to get in or not knowing what they're doing, or, you know, swimming teachers throwing out instructions that they're used to giving to the kids all the time, and then suddenly as an adult you go, okay, but why do I want to do that? And so I think that, you know, there are some great teachers out there, and if there are some people in the chat that are already doing lessons or are talking about, you know, thinking about lessons, if you visit better.org.uk and search for adult swimming lessons, you'll find lots of information there, and you'll be able to find where those lessons are available at your local centre, whether that is group lessons or whether that is one-to-one lessons. And not just the learning bit. So for those people that, okay, I am confident in the water, but actually I'm a bit embarrassed about the state of my front crawl, which you shouldn't be, because like I said, no one's watching you. Everybody's too busy watching what, you know, worrying about what they're doing themselves. But if I can swim but I'm perhaps not confident. Or do you know what? I'm a really confident runner and I love getting on my bike, and I've been promising myself for years I'm going to do that triathlon, but the swimming bit is the bit that's putting me off. You know, let's think of it more from a kind of advanced or coaching side of things. What should people be looking to get involved with to help there?
Well, the absolute first thing that people need to, it's the one thing I have to work on with everyone, whether they're an elite athlete or whether they're a child learning to swim or whether they're an adult learning to swim as well, is if you can figure out your breathing. Breathing is unbelievably important. It's the one thing that we have minutes of our lives. So that's why it becomes a real fight or flight scenario, because if you can't breathe, then your brain panics. So if you're in a constant state of panic, you're going to really struggle. And it's amazing how many people overbreathe when it comes to swimming, especially front crawl. I can quite often hear it before I see it when I walk along a poolside, and people are swimming along, and all of a sudden they turn and they take as much oxygen into their body as they possibly can. Now, there is no land-based exercise that anyone would ever do that, because what would happen is in about 10 meters down, you would collapse. I already feel lightheaded just from taking that one breath in. But when it comes to the water, the brain plays a part in how you deal with that, because there's water. If I swallow the water, that's not going to be good. So what I'm going to do is when I get a chance to take it, I'm going to take as much as I can. But again, if you're trying to do cardiovascular exercise, if you take in too much oxygen, you have to get rid of that. You take in too much oxygen, you have to get rid of that. You're only ever, doesn't matter how good your front crawl looks, you're only ever going to be able to swim 1, maybe 2 lengths before you absolutely have to stop, because you're like, and I hear it all the time, I can run a 10K, but I can't swim more than 2 lengths. It's not because that you're not swimming fit. There is definitely, the movement that makes a difference, but you are fit. It's not that. It's just, for me, the biggest thing, first of all, is just sort your breathing out. And what I mean by that is, again, it's a super simple thing. You don't need to breathe in that much. So take in less oxygen, not nothing, obviously you need to breathe, but a calm intake of breath, like we're doing right now whilst we're talking. Or as you walk down the street, think about how much you're breathing in, how much you're breathing out. And if you're going to go for the same effort of swim, it should be the same amount. And that for me is the biggest thing. Once you can nail that, once you can swim more than 2 lengths without, doesn't matter what your technique looks like, if you can swim more than 2 lengths without stopping and being out of breath, then you can really focus on technique. Again, I'm going to come back to the thing I did before, which is a swimming coach will definitely be able to help look at your stroke and help you through that. Lots of coaches can do stuff online. So if there is a possibility of filming your swim, I know that's not always possible on pool sides, there might be a conversation you can have with the pool or something along those lines. But there are options for you to learn how to swim or how to increase the efficiency of your front crawl, I guess is probably the best thing. But for me, breathing is the number one thing that I spend most of my life as a coach working on.
I've been a guinea pig for that. I did a session with Keri-Anne with a group back in, a long time ago now, but at Jesus Green Lido in Cambridge, which is a fabulous facility, longest Lido in the UK. And I remember thinking I've been swimming my whole life and I've only just learned to breathe properly. So what she's saying works. I'm living proof. Greg, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely bang on. Breathing is everything. I think sort of an extrapolation of that, and you definitely see it a lot when you look at people who go into open water for the first time, and it's all linked to this panic. And I think critically, what you need to do is just relax. And I think often what people do when they start to learn to swim, and they're not necessarily a confident swimmer, is that they fight it, and so they expend so much energy going nowhere. But there is this attitude that the more arm strokes I do, the faster I'll go and the quicker I'll get to the other end. And of course, it generally the counter to that. And I'll always point towards. I mean, take a look at Keri-Anne. She'll be able to swim incredibly slowly and yet still keep going. And the mark of a great swimmer is actually being able to swim slowly and not necessarily to be able to swim really quickly. So I think, and obviously then that links directly into breathing. It's about war confidence. And within that, it's actually about just relaxing in that environment and giving yourself time and slowing things down. And in doing that, it does make breathing that much easier, that much simpler. But without any shadow of doubt, doing it with somebody who knows what they're doing, because swimming is so technical. that having a coach on side really does make a massive difference.
So with all this,
Sorry, I definitely agree that there are very, very technical parts to it, but I think sometimes the thought of the technical parts put people off, when in actual fact, for me, there are three elements to efficient front crawl. Then there are a million adjustments that you can make. The first part for me is breathing. Then the next part is figure out what you're after that. I think so often people go straight to that technical bit and they go, well, what am I doing? What's the catch? How's this working? And in actual fact, your feet are trailing along the bottom of the pool. It doesn't matter how good your stroke is, if your body isn't good, and it doesn't matter how good your body is if you can't do more than 2 lengths without stopping. So for me, those three things are really important: breathing, into body position, and then you can worry about arms and legs. But exactly as Greg says, like, there can be technical bits to it, and you can get to it. You will get to it, but you just need to make sure that you spend time in the fundamentals, because that is what is the good. When you look at elite swimmers around the world, they do the fundamentals incredibly well, which gives them the opportunity to then work on those fine technical margins and what your hands do, what your legs do, how it works, so that how can I get faster? A lot of people go straight, and especially if they're kind of got a short timeline between learning how to swim and doing a triathlon or an Ironman or something on those lines, they go straight to the technical part. And as Greg said, putting more effort into the water is not the way to make you more efficient. It actually tires you out and it creates more drag, which ultimately will make you less efficient in the long run. So it is technical, but don't be put off by the technicalities, because you can get to that, and you will. Just really focus on those fundamentals to start with.
brilliant, thank you. So with all this talk of breathing, then I am assuming that swimming is good for your heart health, it's good for your lung health. Is there anything more we can say about that?
I mean, certainly from a cardiopulmonary perspective, no doubt about it, swimming is incredibly valuable and is very positive. The caveat to this, and to some extent, my job is always to sort of give the caveats to it. And we've published a huge body of literature on what's called exercise-induced asthma. And certainly what we know is that there's a greater prevalence of exercise-induced asthma in swimmers than many other sports. In fact, it's generally winter sports and swimmers. And that's because the air in swimming pools is actually full of chemicals, just about a metre above the water. Good swimming pools, like better, have incredible ventilation systems which ensure that they don't accumulate and become a problem. But certainly what it does point to is the importance that if you have a pre-existing condition, so if you have asthma, for example, there is a potential that being in a chlorinated environment can exacerbate it. So what you need to make sure is that you're taking your inhalers as prescribed. Don't think that the brown one is irrelevant and you can just chuck that at the back of the drawer, and all you need to do is rely upon your blue emergency hailer. Make sure that your asthma is very well controlled, and then you won't run into any problems when you come into the pool. But generally, from a cardiopulmonary perspective, swimming is wholly positive.
Thank you. I always find I sleep really well after I've been swimming, and that may well be that any exercise would do that, but particularly swimming, I think, and particularly if it's been outdoors as well. Is there anything to back that up in terms of sleep health and swimming?
It's an interesting one, in the sense that swimming is incredibly energetic. What Keri-Anne's just spoken about in terms of efficiency and inefficiency. To some extent, what we do in swimming is rely upon relatively small muscle groups to produce a huge amount of power over a prolonged period of time. So lots of people find swimming really, really tiring. If you add on top of that, pools are generally warm, and so we don't get hypothermia, but we certainly increase core body temperature. That changes the metabolism of the activity as well. And so I mean, there are lots of potential reasons why you sleep better after swimming, but I think to some extent, in general, it's actually about physical activity. We know that physical activity improves sleep quality, and remember, quality is very different to quantity. It's about the period of time it takes you to get to sleep. It's the duration that you stay asleep without waking, and it's the depth of that sleep which really matters. And certainly people who are more physically active sleep better. So if you're swimming, you get the double whammy effect of it being incredibly tiring and the fact that you're physically active.
It sounds like maybe I just put more effort into swimming than any other activity, and that's what does it. But it definitely works for me. So we have got some questions that I'm going to head into now. And I also just wanted to say, Keri-Anne, you spotted the question in the chat about hydrophobia, and Nala says thank you very much for your answer on that, and she is going to use those breathing techniques in her aqua aerobics class on Friday this week, which is fantastic. So let's have a look. Some really nice comments here around what we were talking about community with the pool as well. So one of our dedicated swimmers at Archway in London, on the younger side of our average demographic, her words, not mine, and can absolutely co-sign how democratic, community orientated, comfortable and friendly the vibe is. That's cool. That makes me feel like I want to go there. Very inclusive. So that's fantastic.
Do you know what's interesting on that? I sadly still swim with the old boys in the Masters, and I was at European Masters earlier this year in Serbia, and I watched a race, 50-meter freestyle, and the average age, 8 swimmers in the pool, the average age was 86.
Wow.
I mean, it was utterly incredible. There was over 90-year-old in the pool racing, no, not just swimming, actually racing. So I think, the great thing about swimming is that it truly is lifelong. And it's something that, interesting enough, National Fitness Day, their strapline today is that health is for life, activity is for life, and health is for life. It's absolutely true that swimming is something that you can take throughout your life, all the way into octogenarians and beyond. So it's amazing.
Definitely. Some more comments here around, we were talking about the aqua classes. So Deborah's telling us there's a few men who are in the aqua classes, but often thinks that a group specifically for younger men might work in terms of an intro to exercise. So I think that's a good shout. But also goes on to say what a range of abilities there are in that class, and points out the lift into the pool, which I think accessibility into pools is really important, because it's one thing for us to say that swimming's for everybody, but people have different needs and need different levels of support to get into the water. If you've not been to a pool in a while, you may be thinking that it's still the really old-fashioned hoists that you sit on a chair and the lifeguard winds them up and swings you over and puts you down into the water. And in some cases those are the hoists that are used, but there's some real new innovative technology these days that is at the touch of a button, that you can sit in and you moved out over the top of the water and then lowered down into the water, and it's a really smooth way of getting in and out. And that's not just for those that are wheelchair users. I think anybody that may have mobility issues or may struggle to use the steps getting in and out of the pool, there are those sort of pool pod type hoists available that are in more and more of our facilities. Okay.
I think one of my favorite things to do at a swimming pool sometimes as well, if I haven't quite managed to get like a workout in and I go for just a little swim, is actually there's something really hard work about being, so you're non-weight bearing in the water and then putting your hands on the side and then lifting up. I think sometimes that's a really good thing to do, and just like practicing that, and the more you practice that, the more you'll be able to do the kind of put your hands on the side and lift yourself out of the water and then come back in and out of the water and come back in. It also feels like a nice sort of segue for me from going from that non-weight bearing to then gravity, having to use my body from a gravity perspective, and then getting out, but also adds a little bit to like a little bit of help for swimming, because it will help you using your biceps and triceps in order to do that, and those are some of the muscles you're using when you're swimming, but also just can add a little bit of extra strength to a session that you're doing. So if you are injured, as an example, and you've got sore knees and all sorts of stuff, then that's another opportunity to get a little bit more out of a swim. Sorry, I just
Yeah.
thought about that.
Yeah, and also you can stay next to the wall to be able to do that. So yeah, absolutely. Although it does remind me of me trying to get out onto the inflatables at a water park that I was at recently, and that is quite the workout, definitely. However, I wouldn't have been able to do it if I wasn't confident in the water. So it's another activity that you can do with the kids. Um, I would like to finish on a lovely comment from Ebenezer, who says, most of my worries were allayed in the course of the eloquent presentations from the three of you today. I'm an old convert to swimming at 79, and I will be more comfortable on Monday at King's Hall in Hackney for my third swimming lesson. Thank you very much indeed. Which I think is fabulous and a really good note to finish on. I also just want to let everybody know that we have been recording the session, and I will be sending around a link to everybody that registered for the session. So if you have had to leave early or perhaps you missed the beginning, you'll be able to catch up. And we are more than happy if you want to share this with all your friends and family, because the aim of today really is to try and dispel some of those myths, break down some of those barriers, and get more people enjoying the health benefits of swimming. So just one final one from me. If you would like to try swimming, feel free to use the QR code that's behind me to download your free guest pass, and then you'll be able to visit any one of 140 different pools around the UK to try your first swimming experience. And if you're nervous, have a chat with us at reception. Come and talk to us, and we'll show you where to go, and we'll tell you how much you need for your locker, and we'll explain how to get to the pool and get in and have a go. So thank you very much for joining us today. Keri-Anne, thank you very much for giving up your time today. Greg, thank you very much for giving up your time today as well in helping us to celebrate National Fitness Day. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having
See
us.
you all again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.